Also brought to you by the Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. Eat local, but stay coastal at the Boatyard Restaurant. The Boatyard is located at 1555 Southeast 17th Street in Fort Lauderdale. That means you can come by boat or you can come by car. Enjoy the nautical atmosphere whether you sit inside in the cold AC or outside on the patio bar. The Boatyard has something for everyone. Monday through Friday, happy hour, where local favorite is bar bites and handcrafted cocktails. Open for lunch, dinner, and the popular Sunday brunch. And don't forget, Ladies' Night, every Thursday night from 7 to 10 p.m. where ladies drink free. Dock and dine at the famous Boatyard in Fort Lauderdale. I am sure you'll have a great experience.
Clear the airways. The Lunker Dog is on the air.
Are you ready? This is the Real Guy Podcast.
Hey everybody, this is Captain Jeff, and welcome to the Real Guy Podcast. Today we got a special guest in the studio, Carl Ball. Carl, good to have you.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Good to be here.
Yeah, right on. If you guys don't know it, Carl's a skiff fisherman, a bonefish permit tarpon guy down in Key Biscayne. Fishes Biscayne Bay. Been fishing there how many years now, Carl?
I started fishing down there in 93, started guiding in 96.
Wow. So you see some changes going on down there in Biscayne Bay over the years, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Look back at it, and there's a lot of things different than what it used to be, yeah.
Carl, I want to talk about your guide business at the beginning of the podcast because there's a lot more people that listen to the beginning of the podcast than listen to the end of the podcast.
Okay.
The name of Carl's charter business is called AWOL, like AWOL.
Absent without leave.
Absent without leave. And AWOL.com.
It's actually, my website is AWOLFishingGuide.com.
AWOLFishingGuide.com. But if you Google AWOL or you Google Carl Ball, it will pop up.
Right.
And he is the king of the slam in Biscayne Bay, at least as far as I'm concerned. Carl's a little modest. He doesn't think he's quite the king of the slam because he compares himself to guys like Mark Croca and some of the dudes down in the middle of the Keys. But doing a slam in Biscayne Bay is a big deal. And Carl's able to do, what'd you say, about a dozen a year, you think?
I do probably a dozen a year, maybe a few more, but yeah, right around there. I don't keep track of it anymore. I used to try to keep track of it, but...
I don't keep track of my shit anymore either.
Yeah.
Fish counts, how big they are, how small they are, whatever.
It all blends in. You know all the spots you fish. You know when to be there and what to do. So, after a while.
Yeah. I think that's pretty normal with most of the guides that, have a decade or so under their belt and they're doing, 200 trips a year or whatever. How many trips you getting, in your year?
I'm doing a little over 200.
Over 200, yeah. I hear a lot of guides talk about the 300 number and that kind of stuff, and I kind of just shake my head. I'm like, how in the hell?
Right.
I mean, I think it was, it's going to be the year before last soon, but the year before last, I did like 274 trips. Now, a lot of them were doubles, so it wasn't like 274 days.
Yeah.
But, dude.
Yeah.
That was too many for me.
It's a workout.
Dude. I was like spent. I
know. I could see myself doing 250 on a regular basis, but I don't miss it if I'm not doing 250. Right. I like getting just over 200, and I'm good.
Yeah. Well, I think if right around 200, it's manageable. Get a little over 200, it's you're okay. And I think it's important not to overdo it because there's a point where you're actually taking away from your client's experience simply because you don't have the energy.
Yeah, and I think you kind of could get a little burnout on it. There's other things in life that you have to do too, like vacation and spend some time with friends and go do some things and see the world a little bit, and when you look back at over the years that I sacrificed doing all those things, some family time and that, you realize, okay, well, no matter what kind of work you do, it's probably not all about the work. It's about the life that you live in between the work. Right.
Yeah, there's a happy medium. There's definitely a happy medium. And then being a fishing guide, because your hours aren't normal and your other friends, have regular hours.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time that you do get off isn't like congenial with the other people's time that they get off. Like you don't say,
Right.
"Oh, Memorial Day's weekend's coming, so I'm going to take 3 days off."
No.
And then you can hang out with your friends and do barbecues and all that shit. You forfeit all that.
Right. You go do the fishing trips because everybody's wants to go fishing. No,
Right.
that's what happens. And, all my friends that have real regular jobs, they all have weekends off and holidays. And so I miss out on a lot of things for at least the first 6 and 7 months out of the year. I work almost every single weekend, so I have no family stuff. I might go to a family dinner unless it's a real special occasion or something. I don't take the day off. So like a lot of friends fishing trips that I would go to fish Chuckaluski or Flamingo. Yeah, I just miss all that stuff and don't get to do it.
Yeah, I've learned over the years, during the holidays at Christmas, I apologize to all my friends and family right up front.
Right.
Yeah, I'm like, dude, I'm going to disappear for the next 6 months. It's not because I don't love you or don't like you. Right. But, and I apologize right up front because I know for sure, they're going to be calling, through the season to want to spend some time, and it's just not an option.
Right. Yeah.
There was one of the guys on the Captain's Collective, it's a Captain's Collective podcast. They were interviewing a guide, and I'm going to start using this, but he called it hay time.
Hay time.
Yeah, during his tarpon season, he says it's hay time. It's time to not worry about anything else.
Right.
And spend your time doing what you have to do.
Right.
And then, eventually it'll be over.
Yeah.
And he called it hay time.
That's funny.
Yeah, pretty good, I thought.
Yeah, it is good. I mean, it's, once you do, you get your head in the right place. You don't think about it too much. You're busy every day. And, the next thing you know, the whole 6 months has gone by. And, you're out every day. You enjoy doing what you do. And, every day's a new day with fishing anyways. And it's good excitement. And so, it goes by quick that way.
Yeah. The, if you guys, seem like it's familiar because you heard Carl's name a whole bunch of time, it's because this is the guide that put Bonefish Busaka on his first bonefish last month.
Yeah.
And, Busaka being the novice, not knowing about the flats or about the bonefish or anything, we did a podcast with him. And basically it was just all about him catching his first bonefish. And I was actually jealous.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, because he was experiencing it for his first time.
Right.
And you could hear it in his voice.
He was excited.
Yeah, he was excited. His mind was going. He saw things that he never saw before. There's a way to fish that he never fished before. And he was so genuinely excited.
Right.
And I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, I wish I could feel that again.
Right. We're not enthusiastic like we used to be.
We're enthusiastic, but it's it's about different shit.
Yeah.
Something
new.
Yeah, what gets me high today is like when I have a good client that I really like, and he has a great day.
Yeah.
And he's all excited. So then I come home, and I'm excited.
Yeah, you're excited because of that.
Yeah, because of that. But the days of me being excited about catching a bonefish or a tarpon, it's not like I'm not excited, but I was not like Busaka was.
Oh, well, he's really excited.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna go with you again to get the permit. He told me.
Yeah. I think we got a day booked already.
Yeah, you got
like at a month or something. I forget when it is, but seems
I see you've been crushing the permit recently in your recent trips.
Yeah, been doing pretty good on them. Yeah, there's plenty of them around.
I don't know how those fish do that, but man, they like it hot.
They do.
What is up with that?
Bonefish don't mind the heat either. I was catching bonefish in 93.8 degree water according to my Raymarine.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. See, the only time I catch the perms usually is in the middle of the summer.
Yeah.
And I'll catch them when we're tarpon fishing because, we're drifting crabs. And I usually get them in the deeper water and that kind of thing.
Right.
But, man, it'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It's friggin' 95 degrees out. And there they are, happy as a clam, ready to eat a crab for you.
It's better in the winter or in the summertime. It's surprising how it changes. In the wintertime when the water is like 74, 75, it's actually a little hard. You can find them, but it can be a little difficult to get a bite.
Yeah, they don't seem as happy.
Yeah, they don't just come up and wolf a crab like they do when it's 85, 88 degrees. Yeah.
Well, it's good for me because in the summertime those tarpon don't want to do dick until 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So if we can squeak out a permit or two, in the heat, it keeps everybody happy, it keeps me happy.
Yeah, for sure.
And it makes me look forward to the beginning of the trip instead of just waiting for the end.
Yeah.
Now, like I said earlier, I consider Carl the king of the slam in Biscayne Bay, and I wanted to see if you had a specific strategy when you're either targeting a slam, or do you just kind of let the slam come to you, or is it a little bit of both?
Well, it's a little bit of both. You kind of got to be on it, if somebody wants to get a slam, if the tarpon are around and it's happening, you got to really try to get the tarpon first thing in the morning.
Right.
The earlier the better for the tarpon. You can get them throughout the day, but really you really need to get that tarpon early in the morning. And then it just depends on what tide I have and the spot that would go fish for either the bonefish or the permit.
Right.
And then I would plan my day around that. And usually the last one is the hardest one to get, because that's the big question that everybody asks. Which one is the hardest one?
The last one.
The last one.
The time's running out.
Something about the last one.
The pressure starts to build.
Right.
Well, when you hear about Biscayne Bay, a lot of people think, including myself, that is probably the most difficult playing field to get a slam. Would you agree with that?
I think it's a hard spot. I think, yeah, for sure. And the lower Keys is a good spot because the bonefish population is better. There's plenty of permit there. It seems to be plenty of tarpon, especially in the summertime. There's a lot of small tarpon. I don't see nearly as many small tarpon in Biscayne Bay as I have down in the lower Keys.
Right.
For me, what saves me is just knowing the bay so well and knowing where they're going to be. That I find these spots where I can go get them. Otherwise, if you didn't really know your way around that well, yeah, it would probably be pretty hard.
Yeah, you're not going to stumble upon a slam in Biscayne Bay.
Yeah, you don't really stumble across stuff like it was when I first started guiding and fishing down there.
Right.
I would just fish hard, and I would stumble across stuff, and then eventually I learned spots and when to be there. But nowadays, it's really hard to just stumble across anything. You pretty much have to know a spot and have to know when something's going to come.
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a building block type of fishery. You learn a certain spot with a certain tide, and you know that that's going to work for you for maybe, certain part of the year. So and then you build your next, spot that may change because of tide and because of the time of year. And then when you have enough building blocks
right.
put up, then you
Yeah.
actually have a strategy
Yeah.
and something that you can fall back on.
Until you start seeing some of those building blocks over the years disappear. Some of those blocks fall and they're gone.
In Broward and Dade, we've seen a lot of building blocks disappear over the years. That's for
amazing.
damn sure.
I say that all the time to people when we're out there. I'm like, this spot used to be so good. And, when you talk to people about the old days and where they fished, and I used to see them there all the time.
Yeah.
And I don't know why. It's weird. It's like the spot changed, or I don't know what it is. But then, every now and then I find a new spot to kind of fill in for that one or whatever. But
Right.
yeah, it is amazing how many. I always say if I knew then, or if I knew or had all those spots now that I had back then, and added that to what I know now, it'd be a no-brainer for me. It'd be
no-brainer. It'd be easy.
Yeah, it'd be really easy.
Yeah, not too much of that
Yeah.
no-brainer, easy stuff in this business.
You really have to stay on it. Yeah.
Well, perfect example. The first time I ever did TV was with Bill Dance about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
We fished right here in the river.
Yeah, I remember.
And the guy went 0 for 18 on his first day fishing.
Wow, that's great.
I don't think I caught 18 tarpon in that river this whole year. I'm not kidding.
Is it that bad? I haven't fished it in so long. I don't know.
No, it's it's just the overdevelopment, the pollution, the water quality. There's not a lot of water flowing out of the river anymore. Mm-hmm. But those building blocks definitely disappeared. Our new river, there just isn't the fish in there that they used to be. Mm-hmm. And that's why you see me more often now, Carl.
Yeah, right.
Like I stretch out all the way to Crandon now because I have to.
Right.
I'd much rather fish right here.
Yeah, it would be easy.
And I
no
loved
traveling.
fishing that river. I built my business in that river.
Yeah,
But it's not an option anymore,
right.
you know?
Yeah, I used to love fishing that river and like getting those jump pictures with that tarpon jumping down the river. And that was just, to me, that was just spectacular to see that with that closed-in scenery. And
No, that river was always a
Yeah,
special place.
that was
And, there's still a few fish left in there.
yeah,
I don't know what's going to happen with that river or with a lot of these places, you know. Carl's a member of Captains for Clean Waters.
yeah,
And maybe, just maybe, they'll get the Everglades straightened out, and maybe
hope so.
maybe the water flow back into Art River and some of these other little canals and estuaries that we have here in Broward County.
yeah.
And maybe that'll be the ticket. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I sure hope so, because I thought it was just a Stewart and Caloosahatchee problem with the lake draining out. And then the last 2 years, the times that I did fish Lauderdale in the fall, I actually saw a lot of that algae floating on the surface and then the water up some of the canals when I was netting mullet.
Last year was bad.
And I was surprised because I didn't think they let that much water out to this area, and that it was in there. And I thought we were isolated from it, but I was just amazed and surprised and disappointed that it's actually it's everywhere.
Well, the last 3 years, it was kind of like, at least here in Fort Lauderdale and the canals and stuff we're talking about, you saw it build. You know, it started off with a little bit of algae, then there was kind of a lot of algae, and then last year it was really gross. The back of the canals were filled up with that crap, and the red tide was strong enough here that I would have a bait well full of mullet. As long as I stayed inside in the intercoastal, the mullet were fine. As soon as I went out to the ocean just a little bit, got where the water mixed,
Yeah.
all the bait would die in my well.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
It lasted for about 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and
You know, maybe that had something to do with the red tide that sounded like it came around from the west coast.
something.
So that red tide was so bad over there that I think the Gulf Stream picked it up and the northwest winds, and it pushed it around the coast, and there was big clumps of it that came up our coastline. I mean, I never saw it in Miami, never on the beach, none of that. I never saw it at all. And,
Right.
And so I thought we avoided it, but then talking to some people over the year, there was some big clumps of it that were out like in the Gulf Stream, and people ran into these big areas where it was like a dead zone, and it smelled funny and looked funny, and yeah.
No, we got that smell here, and you could feel it in the back of your throat for a couple of weeks, you know, and then it was like that real red tide stuff.
Yeah.
But it makes me like crazy skeptical, you know, makes me start to think about, you know, conspiracies and stuff.
Yeah.
Is how in the world was it so bad, even right here, last year?
Yeah.
This year I don't see one trace of it.
Yeah.
I don't see any green algae. I don't see nothing. It's almost like somebody like, oh,
They set it off.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if we saw half of what we saw last year or a third or just a sign, I'd be like, okay, we're just having a better year.
Right.
But something in my mind makes me think that somebody knows something out there.
Captains for Clean Water went out and dumped a little beaker full of something in the water,
Well,
raise more money, get more attention.
Well, my original theory was, because you remember how it started, Stewart got crushed 3 or 4 years ago.
Right.
And they cried like holy hell and got a lot of attention.
Yeah. That started it off.
The next year, Stewart didn't get crushed.
Yeah, they didn't let as much water out.
Right. They let it out the West Coast, and the
Yeah.
West Coast got crushed.
Right.
So, obviously, somebody had something to do with that.
Well,
that wasn't like all natural or whatever.
Yeah, they're trying to juggle it and stay out of trouble at the same time.
I
you
know for a fact
You know?
that the FWC and these people that do the tests and all the conservation tests for the state hold back information.
They probably do.
No, I know it for a fact. I know it for a fact because
Oh,
when
do
the
you?
red tide was here last year, and I talked to the FWC about it, they said, yes, we knew that, but we didn't make a public announcement about that. Now, what's up with that?
Yeah,
That's fishy.
yeah, they're trying to keep
And
it
I
under
don't
the
mean
radar.
like fishy like fisheries. I mean, that's fishy like it makes me wonder.
Well, they don't want to scare everybody. I mean, I don't know. They probably should, but on the other hand, they don't want to scare everybody. I mean, we do have a big tourist industry down here in South Florida. And when you saw what happened over on the West Coast with all that algae bloom and all those dead fish and A lot of people lost a lot of money in home rentals and hotels. I mean, people just weren't coming anymore.
Right.
And so, I mean, I think that, Fort Lauderdale, FWC, you name it, whatever, they want to do something about it, but there's nothing they can do really, and except run everybody off.
Right.
I mean, there should be some kind of a warning if there's a health issue, for sure. There's got to be some kind of a warning.
Well, I don't know. Call me the skeptic. I'm not a big fan of the FWC, at least in Broward and Dade County.
Yeah.
I've heard some good stories in some of the other parts of the state about that and what they do and what they don't do. I'm a little bit tainted simply because of a whole list of shit here.
Right.
But I don't know. I think they hold back information. I think they know stuff that they're not willing to let everybody else know. Yeah. Which I don't get. I mean, it's government, right?
It's like government agencies. That's why everything's supposed to be so publicly accessible, so that they can't keep it from you. But they don't talk about it. And really, your average, everyday, ordinary FWC officer that's just out on the beat, he may not follow up on it any more than your average guy that's sitting in an office somewhere. They just may not know. They go out, they sit at the boat ramp, they wait for boats to come in, they go check their safety gear, and they put their time in, and then they get off duty, and that's it. They go have a cocktail.
Well, we got one thing that happened this last month that might be a major positive. Do you know who Steve Hudson is?
Yeah, local guy. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you know that he's the commissioner of the FWC now?
Really?
Really.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
And I'm pretty good friends with him.
Good for
I've
him.
known Steve since he was a kid. My dad actually made a boat for his dad.
Yeah.
We've known each other a long time.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm not sure what the hell commissioner actually means with the FWC, but he's the guy.
Wow.
So the next time I see him at the yacht club or one of these parties where we're hanging out, I'm going to hit him right between the eyes with the Broward and Dade County shit.
Ask him what's going on.
I just want to know.
Yeah.
I want to know that if he knows in Broward and Dade County that the FWC and the guides pretty much consider each other adversaries instead of, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it would be interesting to see what his feel is on how that works, because it's kind of like you feel like the FWC and the guides, the charter fishing industry, should be working together.
Oh, especially in Broward and Dade County.
For sure.
Because, I mean, we have so many other people that aren't concerned about the conservation, aren't concerned about the fish.
Right.
And there's nobody in Broward and Dade County that, has that concern more than the inshore guides.
Right.
And we want the same things, supposedly, that the FWC wants to accomplish.
Right. No, we're their eyes and their ears.
Well, we
they
should
just don't
be.
take advantage of it.
Right, we
They
should
should
be.
at least have a number we can call and say, here, let's talk to the guy and see and tell him, and have him react to it.
Right. Like for instance, I'm sitting down there in North Bay, and there's some sort of diesel or fuel spill.
Right.
And the whole north side of the bay has this slick all over it.
Yeah.
But if I go to make a call, I don't have a local FWC guy to call.
Yeah.
If I do make the call, it's a 1-800 number to Tallahassee.
Yeah, there's a local North Miami place, but it's the same thing. It goes through the operator. She's going to recall and report it. And
Right.
I've done that before.
Yeah, I did it once.
And you won't see the guy.
I was so disgusted with the process. I was like, well, that was a giant waste of time.
Yeah, it is.
But I really think the guys like you and me that are out on the bay, out in the intercoastal, 200 plus days a year, should be on the same wavelength, should have communication, should have cell phone numbers.
Right.
To all the dudes that are in the FWC, especially the head dudes.
You're right.
That are where we are.
Yeah. Do you ever see the same FWC officers like every day, regular? I know you got a buddy, Drew, that's an FWC guy.
Right. Drew's FWC. He's right here in Fort Lauderdale. And Drew's in it for all the right reasons.
Yeah.
He doesn't really need the dough. Thank God, because they don't give those guys a lot of dough.
Right.
But he's a real fisherman, and he's a conservationist at heart. And I think he would do it pretty much for free.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, he's still there. I did see one of the guides that were busting my balls
Oh, yeah?
But the reason I saw him is because I took him to court.
Oh, did you
So
really?
I took him to court.
Okay.
It got
I
thrown
didn't
out
know
of the
that.
court. I wish I could have had a video of the
Wait, you got thrown out or the case got
case
thrown
got thrown out.
Okay. There's a difference
Well,
there.
I called you that week. It was, I don't know, there was some shit happening down there in Biscayne Bay where
Yeah.
they were all on, high alert. Some fool run himself into the jetty and killed himself.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, and then the FWC and the police and everybody, were on like high alert. So what do? They start busting the guides' balls.
Right.
And
You're the only one around all the time.
Right. I'm around. I'm fishing like at night, so there's not a lot of dudes around. And I don't know. They got me for something that I never got before. And considering I've been checked literally hundreds of times in the last decade. Hundreds, Carl. Mm-hmm. Never heard about this problem one time. It was about me having a commercial registration instead of a recreational registration.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, they busted my balls about that, and of course I went and got the commercial registration because that's what they asked for. But I told the FWC officer when he gave me the warning about the commercial registration that I was booked every day this week and I probably wouldn't be able to get it till Monday. Mm-hmm. Well, he told me, he says, well, if another guy checks you, then you can get in trouble. So immediately I called Drew on my way back from fishing that night, and I said, hey, Drew, this is what just happened with the commercial fishing registration. I said, do I need to just stop everything right now? I said, is this something that they're now enforcing? Because I never heard of it before. Mm-hmm. And Drew said, no. He says, you're not going to, probably get that. He goes, I never, asked for that type of registration, so I wouldn't worry about it, he told me. Well, the very next night,
You got it again.
well, the funny thing about that, it was a different FWC officer.
Yeah. Okay.
But the first thing he asked me for was if I had a commercial registration.
Oh, really? But he said commercial
Commercial,
right off the bat?
right. And that's
Really?
2 nights in a row.
Yeah.
And I heard about it. So I knew damn well that he
You
was
were-
talking to the other
Yeah,
FWC
you
officer.
were on the list.
Right. So of course, what
Right.
happened is the one FWC officer called the other FWC officer on the phone.
You see this guy.
Right. No, they called. While I was standing there, they called on the phone. And the FWC officers decided that they were going to go ahead and implement the law with me. Which isn't just like a regular violation. It was actually a misdemeanor.
That big, huh?
I guess. I mean, it was a criminal charge and it was a misdemeanor. So if I did nothing but go and get the commercial registration, that would have meant that I admitted guilt and that there'd be a misdemeanor on my record.
Really?
Yeah. Now, I've been fishing out here for 30 plus something years. I've never even got a citation before for anything, Carl.
Yeah.
I try to, dot the I's and cross the T's and make sure everybody's happy.
Yeah.
So I felt like I got set up that night.
Well,
I can't prove it, but,
a little bit.
it's pretty coincidental.
Yeah, right.
And
I mean, I did the same thing years ago, but the guy just said, your boat's not registered commercial, you're a charter. And I was like, oh, really? I didn't even know. I thought that meant like commercial fishing, like not charter fishing, but yeah, so.
right. And
nothing happened. No big deal.
but then what, you just voluntarily went and changed it
Yeah,
after that?
it, switched over to commercial. No, nothing was ever said.
You know what it cost me?
No.
$7.
To switch it over?
Yeah, to switch it to the. Yeah. But talking about seeing the same FWC officers, I did see that guy twice. Once when he gave me the citation and then once again in court. But it's not normal to see the same guys over and over again.
Yeah.
And it drives me crazy because when they do pull me over, and that particular week I get pulled over 7 out of 10 trips.
They were on you.
They were on a lot of
They
people,
were.
but they especially on me. And I asked him, I said, dude, why are you pulling me over? I go, there's 2 guys fishing over there under the bridge. There's 2 other dudes in the channel. I go, but I come in the inlet and you come running over to me to check me. And you know what he told me? He says, well, you have fishing rods all over your boat. And I says, well, I never not have fishing rods all over my boat.
Yeah.
So I turned around to him and I said, so if you have fishing rods that the FWC can see, I says, that puts me on a higher scrutiny level than, say, that jet skier over there or that buy router over there. And he told me absolutely. So Maybe you learned something there.
Yeah.
Or maybe I need a fancy skiff like yours where I can hide all my shit in these cabinets and stuff, and they won't bother me near as much.
Well, the good thing about the skiff is we have a reputation for catch and release only.
Right.
So we rarely ever have anything that's, going to get us in trouble.
Well, you're also pulling around, 10 inches, a foot of water.
They can't get to
right,
us.
so they're looking at you across the flat. If you knew what they were saying, Carl, you might
They'd
think
be waving us over.
Right, you might think of it a little bit different, but that's easy. They just go right by you, and they'll go fuck with me because I'm fishing in the channels and over the bridges and stuff. I don't know, dude. I got a love-hate relationship with the FWC. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
And it's like I really don't feel like those guys, at least in Broward and Dade County. I can't speak for the rest of the state.
Yeah.
I don't think they give a shit.
I think it's all like everything else, in life, like the police. I mean, there's probably a lot of really good cops. And there's probably some that are mediocre that really don't care, but they don't get in trouble either. And then there's the ones that we see in the news that get in trouble.
Right.
And the FWC is probably right along those lines. There's probably some really good guys that are big conservationists like Drew that's in it for all the right reasons, and he wants to, keep poachers down and, all that stuff. And then you got guys that are probably just out there. They just want to do as little as they can. I see them at the boat ramp all the time at Crandon. They're sitting in the truck. They look like they're filling out paperwork or doing, and they probably do have paperwork to fill out.
Right.
But, you don't see them. They don't get out of their truck. You'll see several boats come in. They don't do anything. So they're probably just doing their ramp duty.
Right.
And they do what they have to do, fill out the schedule, and head back to the office, drop the truck off, and go home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's all different levels of them. And it's too bad it's not different, I think they should be out on the water a little bit more. I mean, I just see these guys at the boat ramp all the time, but I don't see them in the water all the time.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And even if they're not in the water all the time, you'd think they would come up to guys like you and me consistently and just talk to get some information, seeing what we see or what we don't see.
Yeah. Right.
Or wouldn't you think it'd be part of their job description to know who the guys that are fishing 200 days a year in their territory?
I would think they'd want to know.
You would think so.
Yeah.
And you think
I don't know why not.
I don't get it. Yeah. And I'm gonna keep bitching and moaning, but I'm gonna talk to Hudson. I talked to the head dude for Biscayne Bay.
Yeah.
It did not go well.
Oh yeah.
Well, I told him what was happening.
Yeah.
And I asked him, if there was maybe a time where I could come and meet him, and he could do an inspection on my boat.
Right.
And then the next day, when one of his guys were going to inspect me again, I can say, "Oh, I just got the inspection yesterday."
Right.
So then maybe they can spend, 30 to 30 seconds to maybe a minute and a half and look in all two of my hatches to make sure I'm not poaching anything. Mm-hmm. And if they did that and let me and my clients on my way, I give them the fist bump. I'd love to know their name. So I'd be like, all right, Roger, see you tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I'd be more than happy to see the FWC and more than happy to have them board my boat every single day if I knew it was going to be 45 seconds and it was about trying to catch me for fish. And then after they did that for 200 times, maybe, just maybe, they'd be like, oh, that lunker dog dude? He hardly ever kills anything.
Right.
And
you're probably not going to have anything.
Yeah, he's probably not going to have anything. But he is out there 200 days a year. And that other scumbag captain, I think he's poaching a whole bunch of snooks. Maybe we should ask the lunker dog what he thinks about that guy.
Right.
No, it never happens that way.
Yeah.
And I pray, I hope, that we can change, just it's a process. I get it. Just like Captains for Clean Waters are trying to change the water flow. I'd just like to change the relationship.
There may be more to it than we know to, but it doesn't hurt to find out and see what it is.
Yeah.
I do know one thing. I didn't go to this meeting. I should have gone to it, but it was anyway. So FWC is going to start trying to patrol Biscayne National Park a little bit more, or at least that's the talk, to see if this will work. And they were getting some public comments on it, and have to see how things went and where it went. But I think they're going to start maybe enforcing some of Biscayne National Park's laws, because Biscayne National Park has like zero funding for park rangers.
Right.
So everything that can go wrong is going wrong, especially in the north part of the bay, because that's the furthest area from any of the park rangers. So FWC might wind up getting a little bit more involved in on-water enforcement.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I went fishing out of Chokoloskee about 3 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Only the second time I ever fished out of there. I only fished in Everglades National Park, at least drove into the park and launched in this park a few times in my lifetime. I've gone from Isla Mirada and come across quite a few times. But I went out with Brian Sanders and had a beautiful day out there. I saw no water taxis. I saw no jet skis. I saw no FWC.
No
and
boats.
I was starting to really, celebrate a little bit, and then I see some lights off in the distance.
Yeah.
And the park rangers pulled us over.
Yeah. No, the park rangers over there you got to look out for. Flamingo, Everglades National Park, they're on it over there.
Right. They pulled us over, but you could tell it was a totally different relationship between Sanders and that park ranger as opposed to FWC and the Lunker Dog.
That's because Sanders has been being good lately.
Right. But now Sanders admitted in the old days that he pushed the envelope quite a bit.
Right.
But he, he's. I mean, I think a lot of those old swamp people like Sanders,
Yeah, stuff
had a
happens sometimes.
Well, they had a hard time, with the new regulations and the rangers and the FWC dudes because,
Yeah.
He's got old roots history,
Yeah.
in the park.
Well, and also they changed things up a little bit because for Everglades National Park guides, they were gonna, when it came to getting your permit to guide over there,
Right.
they were gonna just straight up charge you $1,000 per year, or 5% of your gross revenues from guiding in the park. So you could pay anything from a minimum of $1,000 up to maybe, if you did 250 days a year, you did $100,000 worth of gross revenues. Well, eventually that would work up to about $5,000 a year.
Right.
So the guides all got together and they went and they talked to the park.
That was like
service.
4 years ago?
Yeah, that's been
I
a
remember
couple of
that.
years ago.
Yeah.
And so they all kind of said, look, this is exactly what we're talking about with the FWCs. Look, the guides promote fishing in Everglades National Park more than the Everglades National Park promotes fishing or any other thing in Everglades National Park. We bring a ton of people here. We want the park to be healthy so that we can fish it. We want to take care of things. We want to make it better. We'd love to make it a better experience for everybody. It's not like the old days of poaching and commercial fishing. This is our livelihood. We want it as good as it can possibly be so that we can all benefit from it. And so I think through those meetings, they kind of had an understanding and realized that the park rangers aren't out against the fishing guides and the fishing guides really aren't out against the park rangers. And if we keep an eye on things together, we report things that look funny or whatever, we can work together. You don't have to charge us through the nose to try to get
Right.
all the money. We can't pay for all the stuff that needs to be done for the park. I mean, that has to come from everybody.
Right.
So, I think things have changed in that respect. And I think it probably should change with the FWC in the same respect.
Well, hopefully, DeSantis, he put Hudson in there.
Yeah.
And maybe if with a little bit of communication, maybe, somebody at the top will actually understand what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll
And I think Ron Bergeron became one of the board members for the South Florida Water Management District.
well, everybody asks me if I know Ron. Like I should know Ron. What, he's local here too?
Yeah. Yep.
And because I don't
Yeah,
know him. I
think
don't
he
know him.
lives out in Davie or wherever, but
Like everybody seems to know him. And I
well,
don't know.
he's a big name in town. He's built a lot of stuff out west. He was like a big contractor,
Developer
built a lot
type?
of the roads and
Yeah.
I don't know all the details either, but yeah, he's got big money. He does a lot of really good things for the community. So yeah, he's probably a really good one to have on that board.
If you guys didn't know, Carl's real Florida cracker. I mean, he's been here his whole life. His family was here generations before him. Somebody was telling me, was it an uncle of yours that had the charter boat up the river when the marinas used to be west instead of east?
Yeah, it was my grandfather.
That was your grandfather.
Yeah, yep.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't a long history of guiding or chartering, but his dad and family, they always came to South Florida and would stay in Boca during the wintertime.
Okay.
And so my great-grandfather owned a restaurant up in New Jersey, and during the winter they closed it down. It was out of season, and they'd come down here, and so he had a boat. Boat's name was AWOL, because their last name was Loa, and they just thought it was a neat thing to spell it backwards and call it AWOL.
Alright.
So they would do a bunch of, him and another guy, buddy of his, long-term friend, my grandfather, did charters out of Boca Inlet for a little while, and then they came up here and they were out of the New River. Back when the New River was,
What year was that, you reckon?
that was like, they moved down here in 1947, and their house was built in 1947. So that was anywhere from 1945 to like 1950. And unfortunately, when you're young and you don't think much of it, you just kind of knew that he did that.
Right.
I didn't know enough to know to ask him all the details, like, where did you keep the boat? Let's go down there and see what that's like. Let me, I mean, there was a few old pictures, but you can't get much out of some of those.
Right.
But
Well, I mean, the vast majority of people that live down here are kind of like me, where you consider yourself the old Florida dude, but my parents moved here in the 70s.
yeah.
And I was actually born up in Massachusetts, but the river and the marinas and everything is still pretty much laid out the way it was, when I was a kid. But you go back into the 60s, 50s, and 40s, and it was a totally different place.
And you look at some of the old pictures, and you can't even believe that the humans have just absolutely destroyed this area.
Yeah,
I mean,
they
all
have.
things considered. I mean, it's
No, we destroyed
changed.
this area.
Yeah.
And we're actually like on our third time over.
Yeah.
Destroying it. They're re-destroying it all over again right now.
Destroying it now. Right.
I look at all the mistakes that that Broward County has made, Dade County has made, all the way up to Palm Beach County. It's pretty apparent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I look at the west coast of Florida, and I'm thinking to myself, how in the world do these mayors and state representatives and stuff, how can they not learn from the mistakes that we made here?
Yeah.
Because my parents moved over to Punta Gorda
Oh, did they?
about 15 years ago, and we moved the boat company over there. And in that short amount of time, I can see the difference big time.
Oh, yeah.
In the number of people, the development that's happening, what they're doing with the roads, all the little creeks that they're damming up.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, can't you guys see what we did in Broward County? And can't you learn from that just a little bit?
And that was always known as the wild coast for me, I mean, everything was so much nature over there all the time. But, there's just been a huge explosion in the population down here. And even like last year when I was in December, I went up to Tampa to fish with a buddy of mine, and we went up to the Chazahuitzka River. And
The what?
Chazahuitzka.
Okay.
Beautiful river, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's up by the Big Bend area, kind of.
Okay.
Just north of Tampa a little bit. And, when you're driving down the interstate or down the roads, you see like pines and looks all wooded, and it feels like the country. You don't see tall buildings, but, when you start looking a little bit closer and you see the big sign for the 450 home development that's going to go in, and then there's another one just on the other side of this big intersection that's on that corner, and there's already a Walgreens, Publix, and a Target, and
a 4-lane fucking road.
Yeah, there's a big giant 4-lane road that has a half a mile or 3/4 mile traffic jam up to the light at rush hour, and it's unbelievable.
My parents moved to Punta Gorda to get away from it all.
Yeah, they moved.
And when they did, which wasn't that long ago, 15 years.
Yeah.
They were away from it.
Yeah.
But it only took just a few years. They are not away from it all anymore.
It's overgrown over there, fast, if not faster than here.
I even heard a lot of stories, and it's fact. They're putting water taxis in Punta Gorda. They're putting water taxis around Tampa, Bradenton, and Boca Grande. And I'm like, please, just come over here and take a ride. And people over there think they're immune to the shit that's going on over here. But I remember when there was 2 water taxis here, and it was cute. And nobody thought there was going to be a
awesome,
problem.
wasn't it? It was like kind of cool.
Right. It was kind of, oh, that's neat, and, it was kind of put a little smile on your face.
That ain't going to last.
Right. Right.
How are they going to make money with 2 water taxis?
And
they're not. They're going to do it with 50 of them, and they're all going to be buses.
Right. Right.
Yeah. I always say this. It's kind of a joke, because I'm not smart enough to do it, obviously. But what I always say is that I'm pissed off because I didn't think of the idea. Because you and I would be flying to Costa Rica and fishing out of Los Sueños next week with your family on some big sport fishing boat.
Do you think that?
How about the Thriller down in Miami? You ever see the Thriller go by?
You want to hear a funny story about that?
Yeah.
All right. So Victoria, my 13-year-old, a couple years ago was on a softball team. And we're chilling at the park and we're watching the softball game. This guy walks up to me and he says to me, oh, I understand you fish down in Biscayne Bay a lot. And I says, well, I do tarpon down there. I says, all winter long. And he said, do you ever see the Thriller boat? And I don't know, I wasn't like in the most talkative mood. And so I simply said, yeah, I see that boat all the time. It's always packed. And I didn't say anything else. And the guy says, oh, that's my business.
Oh, really?
He goes, I have the Thriller boat.
You met the guy.
And I start giggling to myself because the shit that I was going to say, like if I'd have been in a better mood about the Thriller boat. So that was one time where not saying too much kind of saved my ass. But yeah, the Thriller boat. Go ahead. Talk about that for a second.
That's just nuts. I look at the thing and I go, who would ever go for a ride on that? And now I see what's going on, and he's got like 3 of them, and I'm thinking, who wouldn't own 4 or 5 of those things? They're packed every day.
Right?
They go for a 45-minute ride. They do 10 trips a day. That guy is knocking down some major cash out of that business. What am I thinking? I should have 5 of those things. Let's go. We'll go to Punta Gorda.
Go to Punta Gorda and open up the Thriller business.
I mean, seriously.
Dude, if somebody's going to do it.
Yeah, we're losing in the fishing game,
We are, well.
Jump in like the rest of the humans and take advantage of the environment and not,
Well, I think you say losing in the fishing game, but guys like you and me have to make a decision when we got that serious about taking people fishing, is that we knew then we were never going to get rich.
Yeah.
And you have to live with that and be okay with that.
I mean, it's a trade-off. You're looking to go to the money, or do you want the life experience?
Right. But we were lucky in one aspect, is you and I both got a house in downtown Fort Lauderdale.
That's right.
Retirement
plan.
Well, at least we didn't have to go out and try to get one here now.
Right. Can you imagine? I couldn't do it now, I don't think.
Yeah, I've been in this property for almost 20 years now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when we first bought it, it was just a little tiny house. Like we paid like $78,000 for it.
Wow.
And when we bought it, I mean, my parents, a lot of the people that I knew were like, Jeff, what the hell did you buy that little thing for? And Victoria Park wasn't exactly the best neighborhood in those times, at least, it's not sought after like it is now.
Right,
and I just said to them, well, at least I don't pay rent. And, it was kind of a good deal and so on and so forth. And luckily, my wife and I got into a property way back then.
Yeah.
And,
same here.
Well, I mean, it's such a mind, I'm not going to try not to curse so much, but it's such a mind scare. I mean, people that move into this city now, you pay $600,000 for a piece of shit property.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't even believe it. I'd never pay whatever my house is worth now
for
that house.
Well, and in our incomes, it's not an option anyway.
Yeah, I can't afford it. There'd be no way. I would want to. I probably could figure it out, but I don't want to have to just live from my house.
Yeah, well, it's some of the few fringe benefits that we have.
Yeah, it is good.
Being old school and growing up with the town, might save our ass after, everything's said and done.
Maybe someday we'll leave.
So, dude, are you getting fired up? I mean, we only got like 6 weeks left and it's happy bait.
Yeah, no, it'd be good to see some bait coming back. I was just up in Stewart yesterday fishing on the beach, and there was a bunch of bait, kind of little minnows up there on the
Right.
beach. Yeah,
The
snooker
pre-pod.
up there.
That's
Yeah,
what we call the pre-pod action.
the pre-pod.
I've been fishing the pre-pod stuff for the last 4 weeks or so here,
Yeah,
and kind of like the way the trips have been going is I'll go out and I'll just fill my well up with those little 2.5 to 3.5 inch pilchards.
mm-hmm.
And there's so many of those pilchards in the intercoastal and along the beach right now that the tarpon, the snook, snappers, jacks, everything is just kind of keyed in on them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we may not get, any action for a long period of time, but when they do eat that stuff, they really, really go off. And the small tarpon on the outgoing tides at night, been all over that. Probably only last another 10 days, maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah, it starts slowing down right
Yeah.
around now. Yeah.
But last time I was out, which was about 3 days ago, I saw the first, what I call preschool mullet. And they were the spawning mullet because they actually would let you net them real easy, and they were,
Yeah.
all packed up
A
tight.
little bigger, yeah.
And then I started thinking to myself, well, Happy Bait's right around the corner, which means it's time to schedule LunkerCon.
Yeah, right.
So we scheduled LunkerCon. I think we're going to do it September 7th
Oh, yeah, okay.
at the Tarpon River Brewery.
Oh, nice.
And I think this year I'm going to change things around a little bit. I think I'm going to use LunkerCon as a fundraiser for the Captains for Clean Waters.
Oh, good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll really appreciate it.
Well,
Maybe those guys will come over.
a lot of the dudes were coming
Yeah.
anyway,
Oh, yeah?
that were in. I mean, the last one we did in Fort Lauderdale, I'd have to, Benny Blanco was there, Jim Habelis was there. You were there.
Yeah.
But quite a few guides, that fish, Broward, Dade, and of course the park,
Mm-hmm.
were there. And when I went to ICAST a couple of weeks ago, by far, I felt more at home hanging out with the people from Captains for Clean Waters than I did any place else.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been on my mind ever since. They were so nice to me,
Yeah,
Carl.
they're nice guys. I mean, they're us.
They're fishing guides for the most part.
That's it. They retired from, I don't know about retired, but they quit fishing guiding to go out and support this movement and get involved and make sure that things go the other direction here. So they're just guys like us that are trying to make a difference.
Yeah, yeah, and well, I'll tell you something. I'll tell you, kind of like my philosophy with all these foundations and organizations, and to me, for the most part, like with the turtles and shit, it's about the money. And these foundations are based out of D.C.
Yeah. Well,
And
there
as
is
soon
a
as-
lot of that.
And as soon as I hear that, I'm like, I don't know if that's really for me.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I believe the cause, and I'm kind of with you on that. But sending money to D.C. is kind of like against my thinking a little bit. So there was 3 times that I voted in my life. I voted for Ross Perot way back when.
Yeah.
I voted for, actually I only voted twice in my life. And I voted for Donald Trump just recently. And I really don't have a political affiliation.
You're an independent.
I'm an independent. And I really don't vote. I probably don't have I probably shouldn't even talk about shit like this. But the reason I voted for Perot and the reason I voted for Trump is because those were the only 2 people that I ever saw run for government that I thought might think like an entrepreneur.
Right.
Might think like the normal person, like you and I, the
Yeah.
guy that has to get up every day and make his money.
Yeah, they're not the typical politician.
They're
They're
not-
from a different school.
Well, they're
different.
entrepreneurs. They made
Yeah.
it in the business world. And being in business my whole life that's a hard feat.
Right.
And you have to be talented. You have to be smart. And you have to work extremely hard to be that successful, which I don't see coming from the other politicians.
Right.
So there was something inside me that drove me, to vote for those guys.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, I'm the same way where you get tired of that old school political lifetime politicians and, you never have somebody that's outside of that community.
Right. And you're looking at that lifetime politician and they're talking to you and they may be the super nice person or whatever, but you're looking at them and you're looking through them and you're thinking to yourself, that guy has no fucking clue.
He's full of shit. He
Well-
knows. He knows.
He knows. They know they're full of
He knows.
shit. Right. They know they're full of
He
shit.
just can't say it.
Right. But
that's what's great about Trump. He says what the whole world says. He just says it in public.
he says it like you and I would.
Right. You and I could talk about all the same exact stuff, and he just says it in public.
I don't know. I mean, politics is a funny thing, and really,
It is a funny thing.
Well, until recently, I understood both sides of the aisle, and I never really got involved, and I'm still not going to get involved. Probably the most political thing that I'm ever going to get involved is the LunkerCon fundraiser for the Captains for Clean Waters.
There you go.
That's about as
That's
deep as I'm getting.
do. That's a really good thing to do.
Are you going to be around for the 9th?
Yeah,
Or 7th, I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I have to look at the calendar, but I
Well,
should be.
Well, because when I promote the thing, I get to say, meet Carl Ball, the king of the slam, and
I love it when you do that.
Dude, I have fun doing that because I get to promote all the guys that I respect. You know what I mean? Like in this business is, you look across the table and you see the guy and he's got a life to live. He's got a family to feed, and you know what he's going through, and you know how hard he's working, Mm-hmm. And because of that, when it comes LunkerCon time, I love to build up every single one of those guides because it's their time to get some recognition. It's their time to loosen up and feel like I'm going to go out and I'm going to have fun, and I'm going to meet people and mix with people that actually appreciate what I'm doing and what I'm all about. Because I've been to all sorts of fishing events my whole life, and I never have seen or felt that the guys that are actually doing the work were getting the recognition. Like take those big blue marlin tournaments that I did when I was a kid. You had mates, you had captains, you had guys that were busting their ass, but when it was time to go get the trophy, the dude that owned the boat walked up there, took the trophy, put it on his shelf at home,
right?
And then we would sit together at the bar and talk about it a little bit. And we knew. Yeah. But nobody else got it.
Yeah.
So at LunkerCon,
the other owners didn't come out and hang out with you at the bar and talk and ask you how you rigged your lures. No, they went over to the owner.
Not unless they were looking for a new captain or a new mate. It's the only time they ever came over.
That's right.
But at LunkerCon, I take a bit of pride in it. And the last one we did in Fort Lauderdale, I mean, you looked across the place.
Yeah.
And you saw all the best fishermen.
Yeah, no, it's a great thing. And you know what? All the stuff that I've done with Hell's Bay and all these ICAST and all that, you know what? For all the other charter boat guys and guides, it's a great time to get together and network and get to know each other and talk to the guy and see what he does a little bit better, because I always get guys calling me about, hey, do you know anybody in the Keys? Do you know anybody here? Do you know anybody in Tampa? Whatever. Right. We're going to go there. And so I know over the years of doing these kind of events, somebody to send somebody to.
Right.
So maybe I wouldn't have, if it wasn't for LunkerCon, I wouldn't have met some of those guys and know a little bit and know their personality a little bit, good or bad, whatever. But
sure.
That's a good event. It's a good networking event. Good opportunity for your average Joe to come out and meet some captains and talk to them. And
No, usually the average Joe, I mean, they show up to an event because you're doing a seminar. They're trying to learn something, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it's not fun like LunkerCon.
Right.
It's not like you're gonna hang out and have beers and actually get to know that person and laugh and meet his friends and. Maybe learn something about the guide's life, or you learn about some other guide. How many guides that have referred to me and I've referred to them over the years, and I've never spent more than 2 minutes on the phone with them. Mm-hmm. You call them up and you say, hey, do you need somebody for this weekend? And either they can or cannot take them, and that's the end of the conversation, and then you can move on.
Yeah, or just text them.
Right, or you just text them, right, exactly. And then, okay, so the dude that I texted 20 times last year, now I get to hang out and have a beer with him.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it goes over well, and everybody has a good time. So we'll be.
It's a good event.
Yeah,
glad you do it.
Yeah, I love it. It's a lot of work, but
yeah.
And I'm excited this year about doing the fundraiser for Captains for Clean Waters.
Right.
Because
good to give back.
Yeah, you're good to give back, and I feel like I'm giving it to the right people.
Right.
Like a lot of I'm getting more friendly with the CCA lately, And that's because a friend of mine, Mike Lambrex, is now the president of the Broward County chapter.
Right.
And Mike, I've known for a long time. He's a mover. He's a shaker. He's the right guy.
Yeah.
So I have a little bit of hope. But I've been listening to the CCA talk about they talk about conservation, and they talk about the angler's right to fish. In the meantime, we grew up here in Fort Lauderdale, where 75% of this place we're not allowed to fish anymore.
Right. Isn't that
The
amazing?
fucking government has thrown us out of 75% of the waterway is not fishable because it's restricted areas now.
Right.
You know? And I've watched the development happen. I've watched the river die. And CCA's been there the whole time.
Yeah. Right.
So it's hard for me to be really buddy up with those sumbitches.
Yeah, they did kind of go to battle with the national park over some of the area that they wanted to close down in Biscayne Bay.
Right.
So, they did do some stuff. But you're right, they should probably have more of it. I mean, they are about, restoring areas and enhancing areas. And then on the other hand, there's all these areas you're not allowed to go into. You can't fish this. You can't fish that.
Well, the CCA is the first ones to tell you how great they are and how long they've been around and that they're the biggest and they're the best.
Right.
Okay.
You gotta.
I'll buy that. Will you please help me with Port Everglades? Right. Do you remember the day we were out fishing and those fish were piled up on the west side of Port Everglades?
Yeah.
And we were taking turns to watch if the law was coming in?
Yeah, right.
So this is funny. I forgot all about that. So me and Carl are fishing in Port Everglades, and we're taking turns looking down the intercoastal to see if the law was coming. So, okay, I could get another 10 minutes on the spot. And then I'd catch a fish and go out there and do the same thing. And then Carl would go in there and see if he could get a fish on the spot.
That's amazing that you have to cover each other like that.
Dude, that was teamwork at its finest.
Golly, I used to go in there. And that's kind of what happened with me with fishing in Lauderdale during the mullet run a lot of when we weren't allowed to fish in the west side of the port anymore. That over there was just so spectacular. It was unbelievable. And that was one of the things about the mullet run that I liked the best because there was so much activity and so many tarpon and, it, just great fishing. So once they closed all that down, I kind of was a little disappointed.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
It's funny because those ship channels in Port Everglades, they were my tarpon fly fish spots, believe it or not.
Right, I used to do that a bunch.
Right, you get those tarpon would get the bait kind of packed up in the back of those big those big shipping slips, and they would do circles, and you could get a fly in front of them over and over and over again.
Right, and those big shadow lines that were off the edge of the seawall.
Yeah. No, that was great fishing.
We were lucky we got to see it. I feel bad for the young kids that come around now, that are in town and they'll never know that. They'll never go see that.
They'll never go see that. And if we left it up to the city officials, they wouldn't even be allowed to fish on the beach.
Yeah, right. Remember that?
Yeah.
Those people were going to throw people off the beach.
They were going to make fishing illegal on the beach.
Right. How nuts is that? It's already, you can't fish it most of the time anyways.
Right.
I mean, it's so restricted and limited that it takes people's motivation to even want to go down there.
Yeah, you have to go down. Well, at least on the public beach, you have to go down there before 9 o'clock, before the coast or lifeguards get there, and then after 6 o'clock.
Right.
Do you know those lifeguards are there till fucking 8?
8?
They're there till 8 now. But they will look the other way after 6 and let you go down there and fish.
Unbelievable. They should.
Dude, that was
Think about the retired people that bought a condo and up here and wanted to come down here and just be able to walk downstairs and put a line out the back door and fish off the beach for a few hours, and then all of a sudden,
right.
they want to throw those people out and not let you fish at all.
Dude, and the cops, dude, they were on your ass.
Oh, yeah.
You went down there with the rod. You didn't even get to the water, and they were already there looking at you. Oh, gotta go. And they were throwing people out before they even changed the law. And then it's actually how I kind of got closer to you.
Yeah.
Like, I knew about you, and we were friendly for years.
Yeah, right.
But what was it? You and Cantner
Yeah.
knew that hearing was
I
happening.
heard about the meeting.
Yeah, you guys heard about the meeting, and then I heard about it through you guys, and I was like, really? They're going to stop fishing on the beach? And then through the social media and the Real Guy Network,
Right.
we let the cat out of the bag.
Right. No,
And
I
we
knew.
all showed up downtown.
I said, okay, if that any way we're going to get this word out like today and be there tomorrow for this thing, I got to call Jeff and get that out there, because I knew you knew like a lot of people here with that.
Well, the Real Guy Network is strong.
Yeah.
I mean, it's stronger now than it's ever been. And, that's the old saying that we have in the network. It's real guys helping real guys. But thank God you and Kantner knew that was coming.
Yeah.
Because if you guys didn't know that was coming, there would have been maybe 6 dudes down there to oppose it.
Yeah.
There would have been a dozen dudes down there to make it happen, and we
Right.
would have lost.
We'd have lost.
And then next thing you know, the signs would have been up. Nobody would have been able to fish on the beach. And then you're talking to some cop that's like, dude, I don't make the laws.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, they don't care.
But anyway, great
No,
hit.
that was awesome, because that room was full of fishermen, and I think those people freaked out when they saw what showed up, and they went up there to talk, and they were like, "Whoa, what?"
Dude, they freaked out. The news was totally freaking astonished by the whole thing.
Right.
They put everybody on the news, and thank God that you guys found out, and that we did have a call to action, and it worked out.
Yeah.
And that's the old thing. That's real guys helping real guys.
Yeah, for sure. No, it helped out for sure. I mean, it's
A small battle in a large war.
yeah.
It was
that's
nice
right.
to win.
It was a good one to win.
It was
for
nice
sure.
to win. When you win one on your own beach, in your own hometown, you're on your own turf.
Yep. I mean, it's like those swim buoys. I mean, I totally get it. People are irresponsible. They come into the beach and they run people over. And it was back when Howard Johnson's, remember Hojo's?
Sure.
It was a big party and everybody would anchor up on the beach. People got drunk. They ran a few people over. I mean, there's a bunch of irresponsible people. But, it was just like so sad, because when the mullet run came and we could fish right up on the beach, and, it was no big deal.
Right.
And now you're all the way up to Palm Beach before you can fish on the beach. You can't fish anywhere from like Palm Beach, maybe Boca at the furthest south, all the way clear down to Key Biscayne. You're not supposed to be up there in Key Biscayne. So,
Yeah, you're like 150 yards off the beach.
yeah, I mean, it's a big area.
Yeah, it's a
Cut
big
out
area.
all
It's a
that
lot of
fishing.
water, and that it's amazing how those
Right.
fish kind of start at the buoys and want to be in
Yeah,
closer
they
than
know.
that. Do they know?
They know.
It's they must know, because I mean, when I'm fishing the buoy line, and everybody goes home and the lifeguards go home and the cops kind of go home, as I push the issue, I get inside there, and I get inside there because the fish are in there.
Yeah,
You know?
right.
But that just is more the area that I'm talking about that's off limits, to fishermen.
What's crazy is they put those swim buoys that far out, and it encourages swimmers to go out there. They go all the way out there.
I know.
If I was the lifeguard, I'd be like, what are you doing out there? That's too far to go to save you.
See, the craziest thing is when, when we're catching those big tarpon off the beach like that, and those, I mean, literally 5, 6, 7, 800-pound sharks
Yeah.
are swimming through the swimmers to get to our tarpon.
Isn't it crazy? And people will go out in that bait, and they have no idea. And there's sharks in there like crazy, just grabbing anything that moves.
Right.
The lifeguards ought to be like, you're not allowed in the fall.
I think last year the lifeguards actually, were on top of that. They were going down there and telling people, hey, don't be an idiot. Don't fish in the middle of all those. Don't swim in the middle of all those
Yeah.
fish. But,
About time.
yeah, well, I wouldn't count on.
And with the shark bites that have been happening just recently up north of here, I think it's going to be pretty big that, they're going to want to keep people out of the water. And people are going to be a little more aware of what's going on anyways, just because of that. Maybe it's a good thing a few people got bit.
Yeah.
For the rest of the people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always some good that happens out of everything. But the last recording I did with Brian Sanders, we were talking about the sharks. I mean, all the way out there where he fishes in Chokoloskee and way the hell out in the ocean, he's having the same issues that we're having
Yeah.
with the sharks coming up and pretty much eating everything that he catches.
Yeah. It's gotten bad over the years.
Oh man, the last 3 years is really.
You know, it's probably, my theory is that overall fishing has taken away so many of the fish that the sharks eat.
Right.
The sharks are going to where the fish are, and we're just there making it easy on them. So they kind of keep track where the fish are. They see fishermen. That's an easy meal getting ready to happen if they're lucky, and so they're there.
They're there.
Yeah.
And all these people that are into saving the shark, that think the shark is cool, kind of like a turtle or a manatee, some fuzzy, friendly fucking thing.
Yeah.
They're so mistaken, but they're behind it. So they got the commercial fishermen, are bending over backwards to make sure that they don't kill the shark. They're killing all the shark's food in the nets and the commercial fishing, but they're letting the sharks go back.
We're letting the sharks go,
and the sharks
are killing their food.
Right.
So the sharks are desperate.
Yeah, the sharks are getting more desperate.
Yeah.
There's a population problem.
That's right.
I mean, seriously, 5-6 years ago, if I had 3 or 4 encounters with the shark and a tarpon over the course of the whole year, that was about right.
Yeah.
Dude, today sometimes I have 3 and 4 encounters on one trip.
Yeah, you gotta move spots sometimes.
A lot of times, there's a lot of areas.
On it.
No, there was a lot of areas where I just quit fishing last year.
Yeah.
Because I did not want to feed the sharks.
Exactly. No, I know.
And I don't know how long they're going to let Boca Grande be the way it is, but that's just one giant chum slick for the sharks.
Yep.
Every fish that's caught over there, I would be willing to bet everything I have on it.
In Bay of Honda, I talked to the guy, the BTT guy that I took permit fishing to put acoustic tags in permit the other day, and we were talking about the sharks, the hammerheads that come into Bay of Honda.
Right.
Yeah, it's they're unbelievable down
Is it
there.
getting like Boca Grande, where it's just so many of them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a combination of easy pickings because the fishermen catch them and they pick them off.
Right.
But I mean, there's just so many fish there that it's going to attract a big population of these big sharks, and they're going to get them one way or another. But the humans definitely, make a difference, make it easier for the sharks to get them. Probably attracts more of them.
Well, I tell you, this year in Government Cut, there was times when I was fishing the cut itself and also off the beaches there, where the sharks basically showed up before I even caught anything.
Yeah,
And
you see them.
And you see them swimming right by the back of the engine.
Right.
The big ones.
Yeah, they come right up there.
Yeah, they're like,
yeah.
okay, I'm just going to sniff around Jeff until he hooks a fish.
Right.
And I would see that, and I'd be like, let's go to a different spot.
Put a shark bait out and see what happens.
Jesus Christ. I feel bad enough for my poor clients when I put them on a 100-pounder. Now I'm going to put them on one of those things in the meantime.
It's pretty impressive, man. I kind of like shark fishing. It's easy, and they're there, and I make it so that you see them when they come and they eat the bait. It's not like just bottom fishing.
Right,
You watch them, and they come flying in there. It's kind of like getting a tarpon bite on the surface with a mullet, except that you see it coming way out there ahead of time. You just don't get the big splash and the mullet flying through the air.
Right.
But it's pretty impressive.
I love it when those spinner sharks come in.
Oh, they're great.
Well, they look cool. They come in like jet fighters. They run like crazy.
Just
They'll jump.
flying, and they're going to eat. They're going to eat the thing.
Yeah.
And then they go flying out of the water. Oh, they're the best.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
The rest of them, I don't want to see at all. I hate them son of a bitches.
Well, you know that when you're trying to get a tarpon and they're going to be there, it's pretty discouraging and it's frustrating because you don't want to lose that fish,
You don't want to lose the fish. You have no problem cutting the fish off.
Right.
Or opening up the bail or whatever to let the fish go. But then you wonder. You're like, okay, I just cut the line. Now, is that shark going to hound that fish because I've been fighting him for 30 minutes? Is he going to end up getting him?
Yeah, maybe.
I would
pretty
be
good
willing
chance.
to bet. Yeah. I'd be willing to
mean,
bet. Yeah.
I have seen them where I broke them off and they've gotten them anyways.
Right.
So they definitely get them.
But it's a strategy now.
And same with the permit and the bonefish and all that. We don't realize, I do more now than ever, but you don't realize how many fish that we hurt by just catching them. Even though we saw them swim away, you don't realize how long it takes for those fish to recuperate. And those sharks are there, and because you've handled that fish, you just touch that fish and you break that seal basically. Now it's leaving a scent trail, and behind a tired fish, and that shark smells that. He's racing as fast as he can.
Absolutely.
And he runs into that fish before that fish even realizes what happens. And he's on it.
Yeah.
And so, that's my biggest concern, is that we're doing more damage than we think we are.
Yeah, my mind is racing, like, especially on my drive home, and I'm on 95, and I'm kind of like decompressing from the day, and then my mind wanders, and I'm like, did that fish make it?
Yeah, right.
My client pulled on that 100-pounder for an hour and a fucking half. When I let that fish go, yeah, he was upright, and yeah, he swam away, and it seemed like, we did everything that we possibly could to,
Right.
Revitalize the fish and everything. But in the back of my mind, I'm wondering.
They didn't make it, maybe. Maybe.
Maybe they did, maybe they didn't.
They might have. You know what I wind up doing is, as that fight goes on and on and on and on, I keep tightening the drag. And I always tell everybody, I go, listen, we're either going to catch this fish soon or we're going to lose it.
Yeah.
You can fight a fish for 2 hours and get it to the end and lose it anyways. So let's just get it now or get rid of it now. The sooner we get rid of it, the quicker we can go back to fishing for another one.
Yeah.
The longer we sit here and fight this fish, the more damage it's going to do to that fish and the likelihood that it's not going to survive. So let's just get it or get rid of it.
Yeah.
And they pretty much understand that, because I tell them, they're not going to survive. The sharks will get them, and then they start feeling bad and they don't want to.
Right.
Then they really put more effort into getting it, and we get the thing and get it on. I'll tell you another good example is the other day we caught 2 nice bonefish, and it's a real sharky area there. And I just knew that, these guys, it was like their first and second bonefish. They wanted to get a picture. They wanted to
Right.
hold that fish up, and it's really, they needed to recuperate, and I couldn't just sit there and do it with knowing these sharks were right there. So I put them in the live well, and I literally motored them on down the way a ways, like a good couple 100 yards.
Yeah.
And then got the picture real quick and got them in the water as fast as I could.
Right.
And by then they were all recuperated well. They were in the live well.
You felt better about it?
They definitely swam away real good and healthy, and the sharks were way behind us, and I give them a little bit better of a fighting chance.
That's what Sanders was doing with the permit.
Yeah.
Out in Chokoloskee.
Yeah.
Is we'd catch we were doubling up on perms.
Right.
It was so fucking good.
Yeah.
But we would put the perms in the bait well.
Yeah.
We'd run off either back to the wreck, like right on the structure to let them go, or we'd run off 300 or 400 or 500 yards away from where we caught them.
Yeah.
And then let them go, and just kept our fingers crossed that those sharks that we were seeing.
Yeah.
weren't-
Because they want to stay around that school. The sharks want to stay around that school. They want to stay around that wreck, because they know that's where it's going to come from. But they don't know to follow you, 'cause they don't know where you're going. There's nothing out there 500 yards away from that wreck. There's nothing there.
Yeah. Well, let's hope it's working.
Yeah.
It's working. But this is like a full round effect. See, this is what I'm talking about. Guides talk about this kind of shit now.
Right.
Where 20, 30 years ago, it wasn't even in the conversation.
Yeah, we didn't think about conservation like we do now.
Right.
Yeah.
And now the guides are thinking about conservation more
Yeah.
than the Florida Wildlife and Conservation.
Absolutely right.
And that's why the relationship should change now.
That's exactly right.
Things are
We should
changing.
work together like we are with the National Park Service.
Yeah. Now, if you guys want to book Carl, which I would highly recommend, if you want to do some flats fishing, if you're thinking about maybe you want to try to get a slam in Biscayne Bay,
Test your casting skills.
right, and hang out with somebody that freaking can teach you something, and when you get off the boat at the end of the day, you're not going to have to exhale, because Carl's a great dude.
Go get a cocktail.
Right,
Settle down.
Right, Carl's a great dude. You'll have a great time with him. It's AWOL Fishing Guide.com. But if you just type in AWOL or Carl Ball into the Google search, when I need his phone number, that's all I do.
Yeah. You
type-
got me on speed dial.
Dude, I don't use the speed dial thing.
You know how to get a hold of Jeff. Just get a hold of Jeff, and he can get a hold of me.
You can always do that if you want to fish in Biscayne Bay. But Carl, thanks for coming in today. Being a local, I hope it's not the last time that you're on the Real Guy podcast.
Yeah, no, it'd be good.
And I enjoyed the time that we spent together. And thanks a lot for getting Busaka on his first bonefish.
Yeah, no, it was good.
Because now
Anybody that's that excited about getting one, it's a lot of fun because they really.
Well, then he won't
he's
bother me
just-
about it no more.
Right.
See, now I can bother you about it. And then you leaked out that you're going to try to get him his first perm. And everybody on this podcast, at least the core listeners, know about Carl Ball because Busaka won't shut up about you.
That's good.
So anyway, thanks for coming in for the Real Guy podcast. If you want to meet Carl Ball, come to LunkerCon. It's going to be September 7th at the Tarpon River Brewery. And 90% chance he'll be there as long as something doesn't come up. And if it does,
I'll cancel it.
thanks for tuning into the Real Guy podcast and run that dog.